ready for shit?
Yes. Broke his armour. He's down. He's down. 2 down. 1 dead.
Okay, 1.
Downed another, but I think his teammates. Oh, he's there. He's gone.
Moving on to today's video, I want to consider a really important issue that many Warzone players are thinking about at the moment, and that is, how does this game maintain its success in the long term? The fact is that this game's popularity can drop off very quickly if players lose interest. This was a massive problem in Apex Legends. Apex looked set to dominate early on, but because the developers did not move quickly enough to change and add to the game, people quickly lost interest to the point where it is still popular, but certainly not dominant like it used to be. In today's video, I'm going to list 20 different things that I think the COD Warzone developers should consider in order to maintain the game's popularity in the long run. I do want to note, however, that these things are all just suggestions, and whilst I feel quite strongly about some of them, there are others which are merely ideas that may be worth thinking about. I compiled this list with the help of a friend who is also enjoying Warzone, and I will include all of these 20 potential improvements in the comments below just in case you do struggle to keep up. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to split each of the improvements into different categories, and as I go through I'll explain what those categories are. So I want to start with quality of life improvements. Things that in the long run will make the game a more comfortable experience for players and just make it a bit more enjoyable. So the very first thing I'm going to start with now, I would like, and this is especially important for people who play on their own, I would like an option for you to carry on playing with the same people that you've just played a match with. Okay, I think they could even take this further. I think they could even give a suggestion for possibly adding them as a friend on, for me, PlayStation Network. Because if you do find that that was a really good game, that you really enjoyed it, that you all played as a team, you should be given that option. And I think that would help for people who don't really have anyone to play with. Okay, next one. In practice mode, I think you should be able to pick your own custom loadout or your own weapon. Because the whole point of that is to practice. Okay, you might want to test out a new weapon, test what the recoil's like. You might want to go to a different part of the map and test the recoil pattern, or you might want to get straight into the action and start practicing it on other players. Next one. Although Call of Duty Warzone does have a pinging system, and it's quite simple and effective, I think they could make it just a touch more sophisticated. A bit like Apex Legends. You should be able to ping to say, right, I'm going to loot over there, or ping to say, I'm going to defend this point, I'm going to be watching this way, I'm going to attack at this particular point. The gas is coming in currently, and lots of other things, just to make it a bit more sophisticated, especially if you're in a team where you're not really communicating over the mic. Next one, I think this sort of goes with my idea of improving practice mode. I think in the future they should incorporate some sort of gulag practice. Seeing as that's a fundamental part of the game, I think there should be an opportunity for players, especially those newer players, to practice that mode and see what works for them as well. Okay, next thing, and this is something that we have. When I say we, I'm talking about when I'm queuing with just one other person. It's a problem that we have had quite a lot, and that is that the game does not always fill the entire squad. So we'll just go in as a 2, and I appreciate that sometimes that might have to happen if the lobby doesn't populate with enough players, and some teams are going to be left with 2, unfortunately. But at the minute, it's happening far too often, and what it leads to, it doesn't necessarily lead to us being outskilled, but it leads to us being outgunned. So I think that's something that they certainly need to improve. Also, and this is quite a hot topic in the community, I think they need to make some very slight adjustments to the terrain. There's been some occasions where I've struggled to get up a set of rocks that it looks very, very easy to climb, and then there's been other occasions where I've literally ran up a massive cliff with no problem at all. I think they just need to spend a bit of time testing this and making sure that it's consistent throughout the map. The last thing that I want to mention, just in this section, is that I think, and other Battle Royales do this, in particular Fortnite, they should show live stats when you're in the practice mode. So what I might mean by this is, if for example you're testing the AK-47, okay, when you land a headshot, it should tell you how much damage you've done. Or a body shot or a leg shot, is it different? And I think, again, this will really build up to that idea of people being able to practice their loadouts properly. Okay, the next section I want to think about is, I'd probably refer to this as general balancing improvements. Okay, and the first point is quite general, but I'm going to mention a few specific examples. The first point here is weapons and weapon balancing changes. There needs to be a couple of changes to weapons. First of all, the thermal scopes on sniper rifles for me are far too much at the moment. They're extremely strong. You can see right across the map, and you can even see people who are using cold-blooded fairly clearly, in my opinion. I think there needs to be some sort of change there. Also, vast majority of people are running around with the same guns in their custom loadout. The biggest one that I've seen, and that I personally use, is the M4 and the AX50 or the HDR. The amount of people who are using that same loadout, and eventually people are going to get bored if they are the only meta weapons in the game. And I know people are going to say to me, oh no, there's other weapons as well that you can use. I get it, but it's a small group at the moment, and that needs to be expanded. So I'd like some big weapon balancing changes in the future. And I could extend this point as well. The heartbeat sensor at the minute is far too strong. Combined with the thermal scope means people are forced to use Ghost perk. They're forced to use cold-blooded, and that's shutting out some of the other perks which also look really useful. So I think by making some changes, me personally, I'd get rid of the heartbeat scanner completely. I would also change the UAV system quite considerably. I'd make it so that you can't see specific people. I would make it so that you just see the area, similar to like when you pick up a bounty contract. Okay, the next point is that, in my opinion, there needs to be some sort of rooftop nerf that encourages people not to just sit on a roof as long as possible. The way I would do this is I would massively reduce the amount of ammunition that you can carry in a sniper rifle. If you reduce that from 40 to 25 or even 20, then yes, people can sit on a roof, but they're going to have to be more selective with when they take their shot, and eventually they're going to have to get down, either because of the circle, but actually also because of loading up on ammo. I think there needs to be something done to stop this sort of rooftop meta that we're seeing at the moment. The next point, and this is somewhat far-fetched, but I think it could be really interesting. I think to try and mix up people's weapon choices, you need to force it somewhat, and this is the way I'd do it. People get to pick 10 custom loadouts that they can then choose to use in the game if they get a loadout drop marker. Fine. How about this? Reduce it to 5 custom loadouts that you do 5, and then when you pick a loadout drop marker, then instead of picking the one you want, you get one randomly assigned to you instead. The way you could do it is, for each custom loadout that you do, you can only use one weapon once. So you can't use the M4 in 5 different loadouts, you can use that gun once. And I think that would make it a bit more interesting. You could come up with 5 really good custom loadouts, but you don't know which one you're going to get. Okay, the next set of changes really refer to content and how to improve the content that's available in the game at the moment. First one is map changes, and I think this is quite obvious really. I think that over time, not right now, but over time, the developers need to think about changing the map. Some of the more obvious ones are clearly opening up Stadium, which I think everyone is sure is going to happen at some point, but I want the developers to be really brave about this. You know what? If you want to change it completely, why not take locations out? Replace them with different locations. Why not eventually, if it's getting really stale, get rid of the map and replace it with a new one? Take brave, risky decisions that keep the game fresh for people. And I just want to go back to that point about weapons. If you don't like the M4, if the developer's thinking too many people are using it, take it out for a season. Take it out. Force it. Okay, next point. I think the game needs to include more and more weapons. They don't have to do it all at once. I'd like them to carry on using the system they're using now, where they add a new weapon in every so often, or a few new weapons that can be randomly found on the map. I think eventually the vision has to be that you can find any weapon on the map. Next one, and this is something that we could see, and it's early days yet, but I would like to see the developers really engage with the community by having events, by teasing the community with potential changes that are coming up. Really, and Fortnite does this brilliantly well and always has, it has to be said, whatever you think of that game. I think if you do that, you engage with the community more, and they get more excited about playing on the game, knowing that it's going to have some changes. Next one, this isn't a big thing for me, personally. I never actually do this that much, but I know a lot of people really enjoy playing unlimited time modes. So a couple of examples that me and my friend thought was, what if you had a gulag tournament? Maybe 30 players, teams of 3 in a bigger gulag setting, and then you keep playing to see which squad comes out on top. What about a nighttime mode, where you drop in and the map's the same, it's still a battle royale, but it's completely dark? What about a mode where you can only use snipers? There's loads of different ideas. A mode where you can't get custom loadouts. Lots and lots of different ideas there, and I think you just drop these in every so often, like they are doing, to be fair to them, and that really keeps the game fresh. Next one, I'd like there to be more findable perks on the map. Yeah, so you can find Ghost, you can find Cold Blooded, and add it to your custom loadout that you've already got. They should be legendary drops, but I think just to get players to engage a bit more with some of those different perks that they might find if they haven't got a custom loadout yet. Okay, so the next set of changes are to do with the Battle Pass. So the first thing I'd like to see is more interesting and varied challenges. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this. From my point of view, there's two types of challenges. There's natural challenges that just happen over time, and then there's challenges that you actually have to go and do. Now, a natural challenge is, for example, put on 18 plates of armour. I'm not going to go into a game and force that. I'm not going to say, right, this game I'm going to put 18 on. No, I know over time that's going to happen, so I don't ever think about it, it will just happen. The problem with that is it's not really interesting at all. I think they need to make the challenges a bit more varied, a bit more interesting, a bit more specific, so you actually have to go out of your way and do it. Maybe get so many kills in this place, or get so many kills with this particular weapon. Okay, the next one is they really need to think about the Battle Pass rewards that they are giving away at the moment. I think so far, from what I've seen, they're pretty good. But I think just keep making them more and more interesting. Offer as much as you possibly can for the value of that Battle Pass, and that will keep people buying it. Next one, and this kind of ties in with the first point on the Battle Pass, but make really specific challenges which give specific rewards. So for example, you might have a pump shotgun challenge, or something like that, or an MP7 challenge, or maybe you try and force the meta away from what it currently is at the moment by giving challenges to particular weapons that aren't used much, and then you get some sort of charm or some sort of emblem or whatever it might be to prove that you've done that challenge. I think again that's another way to really engage players and keep the game fresh. Next one, and this kind of ties in with a point that one of my favourite games, Rainbow Six, does a lot. And that is, I would like the game to offer data on what's been happening. So for example, why don't you just tell the community how many people on average are picking the M4? How many people on average are picking the MP5? How many people are picking the AUG? What's the win rates with people who've got those particular weapons? I don't know how easy that would be, but I think that would be a really good way of sort of justifying any nerfs or buffs or whatever it is you do if you show that data. And with this point as well, I think they should release long-term plans. The longest term plan possible is the best way to do it. Yeah, if you can say what's going to be happening in 6 months or 1 year, that's the way to do it. And that will encourage players to stay, knowing that there's a long-term plan for this game. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's video. I'm sure many of you have got other suggestions, and I'm sure many of you would say some of my suggestions are awful and wouldn't work. That's fine. I'd welcome you to let me know what you think in the comments below. Also let me know what you think about that self-revive exploit, you might want to say, that I showed at the start of the video.
Sniper on that roof.
I killed one, downed another, but I think his teammates... Oh, he's there. He's gone.